She said it was just a scan. But the alien guard's touch said more. The unexpected encounter. The hum of Gateway Station Perseus filled the air with a constant electrical thrum, punctuated by announcement chimes in a dozen languages. Dr. Amora Chen adjusted the strap of her research case, feeling the weight of 3 years' work pressing against her shoulder. The Xenobiology Conference was her chance to present groundbreaking findings on cross-species cellular adaptation. But first, she had to navigate the infamous security protocols. The line moved with bureaucratic slowness. Traders, diplomats, and tourists shuffled forward, each disappearing into the sleek scanning booths that lined the checkpoint. Amora studied the guards stationed between the booths. Most were human or the common Terralian species, their blue uniforms crisp and impersonal. But one stood apart. He was Velothian, unmistakably so. His skin held the deep violet of twilight, overlaid with intricate silver patterns that shifted subtly with his movements, like constellations rearranging themselves across a living sky. Silver-white hair fell past his shoulders, catching the station's artificial light and reflecting it with an otherworldly sheen. When he turned to guide a traveler forward, Amora caught sight of his eyes, amber, intense, and unexpectedly warm despite his rigid military bearing. Next, his voice carried across the space, smooth and resonant with an accent she couldn't place. Amora realized with a start that he was looking directly at her. She stepped forward, suddenly conscious of her travel-worn appearance after the 3-day transport from Earth. As she approached his station, she noticed the nameplate on his uniform, Enforcement Officer Draven Saurix. Documentation and purpose of visit, he stated, extending his hand for her credentials. She fumbled with her case, finally producing her conference pass and station visa. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and she felt an unexpected warmth, almost electric. Draven's expression remained professionally neutral, but something flickered in those amber eyes, recognition, perhaps, or surprise. Dr. Chen, he read from her identification, his pronunciation careful and correct. Xenobiology researcher from Earth's Institute of Interspecies Studies. Yes, I'm here for the annual. I'm aware of the conference, he interrupted, not unkindly. We've been processing researchers all week. He glanced at his scanning console, then back to her. New station protocols require enhanced biometric verification for all Earth travelers. I'll need to conduct a manual scan. Amora nodded, having been briefed about the increased security measures. Tensions between the Earth Coalition and the Outer Rim Collective had necessitated stricter controls, though most considered them political theater. Please stand still, Draven instructed, moving closer. He removed one glove with deliberate precision, revealing a hand with the same violet skin and silver tracings that covered his visible areas. When he raised his bare hand to her wrist, Amora felt her pulse quicken. His touch was warmer than any human's, almost fevered, but not uncomfortable. Rather, it sent a strange sensation through her arm, part physical, part something she couldn't name. Draven's fingers pressed gently against her pulse point, supposedly reading her biometric signature. But they lingered. His thumb traced an unconscious circle on her skin, and Amora watched, fascinated, as the silver patterns on his hand began to glow with a soft luminescence. Is that normal? She asked quietly. His eyes snapped to hers, and she saw something she recognized from her research, a biological response that Velothians couldn't fully control. The luminescence intensified slightly before he pulled his hand away as if burned. Forgive me, he said, his professional mask slipping for just a moment. A calibration issue with the scanning interface. They both knew he was lying. Amora had studied Velothian physiology extensively. The luminescent response he displayed was involuntary, triggered by strong emotional or physical attraction. It was as revealing as a human blushing, perhaps more so. Thank you, Officer Saurix, she managed, her own heart racing. Your clearance is approved, Dr. Chen, he replied, his voice slightly strained. He handed back her documentation, careful not to make contact this time. Welcome to Gateway Station Perseus. Amora walked toward the main concourse, feeling his gaze on her back. When she glanced over her shoulder, she found him still watching, his expression unreadable but his hands still glowing faintly at his sides. The conference suddenly seemed far less important than understanding what had just passed between them in that sterile checkpoint. The warmth of his touch lingered on her wrist like a brand, impossible to ignore. Manufactured reasons. The conference consumed Amora's first 2 days on Perseus Station. Presentations, networking sessions, endless discussions about cellular bonding theories that normally would have captivated her completely. Instead, she found her thoughts drifting to amber eyes and a touch that had burned warmer than any human's. On the third morning, she stood before her mirror, smoothing her conference attire and acknowledging the truth she'd been avoiding. She wanted to see him again. The rational part of her brain, the scientist who dealt in facts and evidence, argued against the foolishness of seeking out a station security officer for no legitimate reason. But another part, quieter yet more insistent, remembered the way his luminescence had betrayed what his words had not. She checked her station visa, noting the expiration date was still 2 weeks away. Perfect. Amora grabbed her datapad and headed toward the security checkpoint, rehearsing her excuse. The checkpoint was less crowded mid-morning. 3 guards were on duty, but Draven wasn't among them. Disappointment settled in her chest, sharp and surprising in its intensity. She approached the nearest guard, a human woman with kind eyes. "Excuse me, I think there might be an error with my biometric scan from earlier this week. Could someone verify it?" The guard consulted her console. "Everything shows cleared, Dr. Chen. Was there a specific issue?" I'd feel more comfortable with a manual verification. The officer who processed me initially mentioned something about calibration concerns. The lie came easier than it should have. "That would have been Officer Sorix," the guard said with a knowing smile that made Amora's cheeks warm. "He's on duty in Section C today. Down that corridor, 3rd checkpoint on the left." Amora followed the directions, her pulse accelerating with each step. Section C handled cargo verification, far less trafficked than the main passenger gates. She found him alone at his station, reviewing manifests on a holographic display. The silver patterns on his skin were subdued in the dimmer lighting, but they caught the blue glow of his screens, creating an almost hypnotic effect. He sensed her presence before she spoke, his head turning with that peculiar grace that marked his species. When their eyes met, the surprise in his expression gave way to something warmer, more complicated. "Dr. Chen." His voice held a question. "Your conference is in the Eastern Sector." "I know. I wanted to verify my biometric scan. There seemed to be some irregularity during our first encounter." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, not quite a smile, but close. "Did there?" "Your calibration issue," she reminded him, stepping closer to his station. "I'm a scientist. I prefer certainty in all things." Draven set aside his datapad with deliberate slowness, his amber eyes never leaving hers. "That's admirable. Though I should confess, Dr. Chen, the calibration was functioning perfectly." "Was it?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. "The equipment never lies." He moved around the station console, closing the distance between them. "It accurately registers physiological responses. Elevated heart rate, increased body temperature, neural activity patterns consistent with." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Strong mutual recognition. Is that the clinical term?" Amora asked softly. "It's the one that keeps me employed." His hand reached out, hovering near hers but not quite touching. The honest term would violate several station protocols. She made the choice for him, placing her hand in his. The warmth flooded through her again, immediate and undeniable. This time, she watched as the silver patterns across his entire visible skin began to glow, pulsing gently in rhythm with their joined hands. "This is why I couldn't stop thinking about you," Draven admitted, his voice rough with honesty. "Velothians experience resonance rarely, especially with other species. When we do, it's—" He struggled for words. "Consuming. Impossible to ignore." "I'm familiar with the research," Amora said, though reading about it and experiencing it were vastly different things. "The luminescence is involuntary. A biological truth detector." "Yes." He turned her hand over, tracing the lines of her palm with reverence. "I've stood at checkpoints for 5 years, scanned thousands of travelers. Nothing." Then you walked toward me, and my entire body responded before you even spoke. They stood in the quiet cargo checkpoint, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the distant clang of loading equipment. The moment felt stolen from time itself. I shouldn't have come, Amora whispered, though she made no move to pull away. No, you shouldn't have. Draven's thumb traced circles on her wrist, exactly where he'd first touched her. Station regulations forbid fraternization between security personnel and travelers. It's grounds for immediate termination and deportation. Then why are you still holding my hand? His luminescence brightened, cascading across his skin like liquid silver. Because some things matter more than regulations. I'm beginning to understand that might be a dangerous realization. A proximity alert chimed, signaling an approaching cargo vessel. Draven reluctantly released her hand, his professional mask sliding back into place with visible effort. But his eyes remained warm, full of unspoken promises. Come back tomorrow, he said quietly. I'm on passenger gate duty. Find a reason. Amora nodded, committing his schedule to memory. I'm sure something will require verification. Over the following days, she became an expert at manufacturing reasons. A misplaced credential here, a question about restricted zones there, a concern about her return transport authorization. Each visit, Draven extended the interactions, his questions ranging beyond protocol into genuine curiosity. Tell me about Earth's oceans, he said during one manufactured scan, his fingers resting against her collarbone to check her cardiac rhythm. They are vast, unpredictable, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, she answered, aware of how his touch sent warmth spreading through her chest. The Atlantic near my home has storms that can sink ships, but at sunrise, it looks like liquid gold. We have crystal forests on Velothia, he shared, his voice taking on a distant quality. They sing when the wind passes through them. Different notes depending on the season, the temperature. My mother used to take me there as a child. She said if you listened carefully, you could hear the planet breathing. I'd like to hear that someday. His hand stilled against her skin. Would you? Truly? Yes. The word came without hesitation. The luminescence beneath his skin flared brightly, and several passing travelers glanced their way. Draven cleared his throat, stepping back with visible reluctance. Your scan is complete, Dr. Chen. Everything is in perfect order. Until tomorrow, she asked quietly. Until tomorrow. But both knew that tomorrow wouldn't be enough. Neither would the day after, or the one following that. What they were building in these stolen moments at security checkpoints was becoming substantial, real, dangerous. And neither of them possessed the strength to stop. Stolen moments. The conference ended, but Amora extended her station visa, citing research opportunities in the Perseus archives. It wasn't entirely a lie, the station's xenobiology database was exceptional. But her real research had become understanding the pull she felt toward a Velothian guard whose luminescence now flickered whenever she entered his vicinity. 2 weeks became 3. Their checkpoint encounters evolved into a dangerous dance of lingering touches and conversations that stretched the boundaries of professional interaction. Draven's colleagues had begun to notice, offering him knowing looks and subtle warnings. Amora caught the disapproving stares of other travelers who recognized the impropriety of a security officer spending unnecessary time with one particular woman. It was during her 14th manufactured visit that everything changed. This can't continue, Draven said quietly, his hand wrapped around her wrist under the pretense of checking her pulse. Commander Vallis conducted random surveillance reviews yesterday. If she examines my logs, she'll see the pattern. Amora's stomach dropped. Then this is goodbye. The silver patterns on his skin pulsed with distress, contradicting the neutral expression he maintained for the security cameras. Meet me. Tonight. Off duty. Where? Hope and fear warred in her chest. He pressed something small into her palm, a data chip. Instructions are encrypted. Use your research credentials to decode it. 2300 hours. Before she could respond, another traveler approached the checkpoint, and Draven's professional mask snapped into place. Amora continued through, her fist closed tightly around the chip, her future suddenly balanced on a decision that violated every rule she'd built her careful life upon. That evening, she decoded his message in the privacy of her quarters. The coordinates led to Section 7, an abandoned observation platform scheduled for demolition. Access required override codes he provided, another violation of his oath, another risk he was taking for her. Amora dressed carefully, her hands trembling as she sealed her jacket. She could still walk away. Return to Earth, resume her orderly life, forget amber eyes and impossible warmth. But even as she considered it, she knew the choice had been made the moment his hand first touched her wrist. The corridors leading to Section 7 were dimly lit and silent. Few ventured to the station's outdated areas, particularly at night. Amora followed the coordinates precisely, her heart pounding as she approached a sealed access hatch. She entered Draven's codes, and the door hissed open. The observation platform beyond stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling transparent aluminum panels revealed an unobstructed view of the Perseus Nebula, its swirling purples and blues illuminated by distant stars. The space was furnished with only maintenance equipment long since abandoned: crates, old monitoring stations, dust covers over defunct terminals. And Draven, standing at the center of it all, no longer in uniform. He wore simple civilian clothing in deep gray that somehow made him seem more vulnerable, more real. His silver-white hair was loose, cascading around his shoulders, and his luminescent patterns glowed softly in the nebula's reflected light. "You came," he said simply. "Did you doubt I would?" Amora moved toward him, drawn as always. "I hoped. But hoping and certainty are different things." He gestured to the view surrounding them. "I discovered this place my first year on Perseus. When the isolation became too much, I'd come here. Remind myself that the universe is larger than duty and regulations." Amora turned slowly, taking in the cosmic display. "It's extraordinary." "Yes. And now it's ours, at least for tonight. No cameras here. No protocols. Just." He reached for her, his movements tentative despite the weeks of carefully controlled touches. "Just us. If you want that." She closed the remaining distance, answering with action rather than words. Her hands found his face, fingers tracing the luminescent patterns that now pulsed brightly with emotion. His skin was warmer than any human's, silky smooth beneath her touch, and the silver markings seemed to respond to her, brightening where she made contact. "I've wanted to do this since the first scan," she admitted. "When I saw your patterns glow and knew you felt it too." Draven's hands settled on her waist, pulling her closer. "Resonance isn't supposed to happen like this. Instant. Overwhelming. We're taught it develops slowly, over years of companionship." His forehead touched hers, their breaths mingling. "But from the moment I saw you in that line, my entire biology recognized something my mind hadn't yet accepted." "What did it recognize?" "That protocols don't matter. Regulations don't matter. Species don't matter." His lips brushed against hers, feather-light and questioning. "This matters. You matter." Amora answered by kissing him properly, deeply, her arms winding around his neck as his tightened around her waist. The kiss was everything their checkpoint encounters hadn't been allowed to be: unrestrained, honest, consuming. She felt the heat of him everywhere they touched, felt the way his luminescence intensified until silver light outlined them both against the nebula's glow. When they finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, Draven guided her to a clearing he'd prepared. Maintenance blankets spread over old equipment crates, creating an improvised seating area that faced the best view of the stars. They sat together, her body tucked against his arm around her shoulders. "Tell me everything," she said. "Not the careful pieces we share at checkpoints. Everything." And he did. Draven spoke of growing up on Velothea, a world of eternal twilight where bioluminescent life replaced traditional sunlight. He described the crystal forests his mother had loved, how she'd died when he was young, leaving him with his father who'd never understood his son's fascination with other worlds. He joined station security to escape expectations, to find purpose beyond the traditional paths laid out for his kind. In turn, Amora shared her own story, an Earth childhood split between divorced parents, finding solace in science when human relationships proved complicated. Her work had become her identity, her research the one constant in a life of variables. Until now. Until him. I'm afraid, she admitted as the station's artificial dawn began to lighten the sky beyond the nebula. Of what this costs. Of what happens when we can't hide anymore. Draven's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing naturally. I'm terrified. My position, my career, potentially my ability to remain on Perseus, all at risk. His luminescence pulsed with sincerity. But I'm more afraid of letting you walk away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. Then we don't walk away, Amora decided, surprised by the certainty in her voice. We're careful, but we don't walk away. They stayed until the shift change made it too dangerous to remain. Before they parted, Draven kissed her once more, slow and sweet and full of promise. I'll find other places, he whispered against her lips. Safe places where we can be ourselves. Amora nodded, committing his face to memory, the way the dawn light caught in his silver hair, the warmth in his amber eyes, the patterns glowing steadily beneath his skin. I'm not leaving Perseus. Not yet. Not while this. She touched his chest, feeling his heart beating as quickly as her own. Not while this is still possible. They left separately, maintaining the illusion of propriety. But everything had changed. The touch that began as protocol had evolved into something neither could deny, something worth risking everything to protect. 4 to 5 parts.